Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome to our webinar today at Data Strategy for Growth, Getting Your Organization on the Right Track. My name is Alexandru Puiu, and I'm a co-CTO at Mindit.io. I have a strong background in software engineering and big data platforms, and my passion is to squeeze every bit of value out of data. So looking forward to present to you today. And here with me is Theo, my colleague.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Theodore, and I've been a past business user, passionate about data, and now I'm more of a software and data architect. And yeah, I try to help other people with challenges similar to what I had in the past. All right. I guess we should align on the expectations for the session. It's going to be a 30-minute session. And at the end of these 30 minutes, we're going to have a Q&A session. So please leave your questions in the chat and we'll be happy to answer them and take them at the end. All right.
Great.
Let's have a look at the agenda. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have structured the presentation into these, let's say, 4 or 5 sections actually, with the wrapping up and the Q&A. We want to look at what the data strategy is and what are its benefits. We want to see who's involved in creating a data strategy and who benefits from it. We want to emphasize the core objectives of a strategy, a good strategy, and we want to highlight the steps to start such a strategy and what you need to do to be able to jump on this this train, let's say. Okay, and yeah, at the end we're gonna wrap it up, take some key notes, and gonna pass it to you to ask questions. Okay, and now we're gonna
Thank
pass it
you.
to Alex, please.
Thank you, Theo. We live quite interesting times today. Um, we have more data than we've ever had. At the same time, we have the least amount of data that we will ever have moving on. And actually, studies say that by 2030, about 50% of the data out there will be synthetic or AI generated. And that's an interesting fact because that has a lot of implications for us as person, but mainly for businesses and organizations. Um, that's why a data strategy is, I would say, required to be ahead and make sure that you know the data that you have, you know what you do with that data, and you know what value you can get out of it. Um, and what the data strategy is, you may ask, is as any other strategy, a well-defined plan, giving clarity on the data, related objectives and goals for the organization. And it should have a clear overview on and coverage over technologies, processes, peoples, and why not rules and of how data is used. It should cover the direction of your ecosystem, whether you are going for a centralized approach or a decentralized approach, depending on your needs and your desires. Um, One of the biggest benefits is that it help your organization to increase value, and you can do that by having a clear roadmap that is actionable and traceable. So you know what you're doing, you know what you will be doing in 6 months, and you know how to shift depending on how your business moves. And Ideally, it should be accompanied by a steering committee that is responsible of monitoring, adjusting the strategy, and supporting all the actors involved in the process. And about benefits.
Thank you, Alex. If I may add one thing, because I like analogies. The data strategy is, and you can think of it as your organization's GPS for managing data, right? And as a GPS helps you navigate from point A to point B, a data strategy helps guide your company from where you are today to where you want to be in terms of data. So it's that well-defined plan that Alex was mentioning that encompasses your technology choices, your processes, your people, and the rules for managing the entire data estate.
Thank you, Theo.
Thank you. And I think we can have a look at the benefits of a data strategy, right? So we looked at what it is, but why should we jump on the bandwagon? What are our benefits? So let's explore immediate benefits that you will see when implementing a data strategy. And maybe I'll share some interesting use cases, real world examples of how different organizations could leverage these advantages. So when we're talking about having a clear vision, you can think of, and you can imagine, let's say, a retail company where marketing is using one set of metrics, the sales department is using another, and a customer service another. And when implementing their data strategy, they establish together a unified, let's say, customer profile. And suddenly all departments start to speak the same language, right? Marketing knows exactly what sales needs, and customer service has complete visibility into customer interactions. So this alignment reduces the confusion and it accelerates decision-making across the board, right? If we move on to, let's say, improve data management, you can consider, let's say, another example, a manufacturing firm that struggles with multiple spreadsheets or databases across different factories or plants. And each facility maintains its own production data, and it's sort of impossible to get a complete picture of the company's operations. But by implementing a cohesive data strategy, they break down these silos, right? So that now they can instantly compare performance across facilities. They can identify best practices, and they can optimize their production globally, right? What used to take weeks, it might now happen in real time. And future proofing applications. This benefit is particularly exciting. Think about a financial services company building their data infrastructure with machine learning, with AI in mind from the start. They wanted to implement the fraud detection AI. They didn't need to, rethink their systems because they had clean, structured data ready to go. This saved the months of preparation and allowed them to deploy AI solutions in weeks rather than years. Let's have a look at what a true data culture looks like in practice. Picture a healthcare organization where every decision, from patient care to operational efficiency, is backed by data, right? Think about nurses that can check historical patient data before making any kind of decision, administrators of facilities using predictive analytics for staffing, doctors collaborating using shared insights. So it's not just about having the data, it's about everyone naturally turning to data as their first step in decision making. And finally, regulatory compliance. So think about a global consumer goods company using their data strategy to create a comprehensive data governance framework. And we'll talk about that more soon. When GDPR was introduced, they weren't scrambling like their competitors. Their data was already mapped, it was already tracked and properly secured. When auditors came knocking, they could demonstrate compliance quickly and confidently. So this proactive approach, thinking ahead, not only reduced risk but also saved millions of potential fines and emergency compliance measures that the company didn't have to do. Right. I think the key takeaway here is that these benefits compound each other. So a clear vision leads to a better management, which enables future proofing of applications, which reinforces the data culture, which in turn makes compliance easier. So it's a virtuous cycle that keeps building momentum. And here's the particularly interesting stuff. Organizations often find that these benefits appear sooner than expected. You don't need to wait for your entire strategy to be implemented before seeing results. Even small steps, baby steps that you can do in the right direction can yield significant results in your company with regards to the data. All right, and now that we've had a look at the benefits, Alex,
Yeah. Let's talk
let's
about
look. Yeah.
who's involved, who it affects. Virtually, the data strategy affects the whole organization. But here today we're gonna talk who are, let's say, the main actors and um, the roles actually, which a data strategy should target. First of all, you have the data department. You have data engineers, data scientists, and data analysts. They are the masters of data and they know how to um, take any bit of performance out of and value out of that data. But then you have IT teams. IT teams usually are responsible of deploying or implementing digital transformation projects. They are the ones who bring the new tools to the organizations, and they must be aligned. It's uh, it's let's say the entry point of the data for your organization, and they should be aware of what your data strategy is when they choose tools, when they design new tools, new architectures, to make sure you have as much data as possible, valuable, of course, as early in the process as possible. Then you have business managers uh, who know what the business needs, who know and understand their pain points, the business pain points, what they could help from. And you have top management who should be invested in this day one. Any data strategy will fail if you don't have the support of the management and you don't want to spend the time convincing the management that the strategy and the initiatives that you propose are the ones that benefit every single day, but you should have the management supporting you and um, asking the questions of how they can support the data department. And what's another crucial point is this um, the actors or a data strategy is a cross-functional game. You won't have only the data people or the IT roles involved in this. You need business managers to understand the needs, to find gaps, find opportunities, discuss with the data teams, data analysts, understand, hey, we have this data, we don't have this data. And then you have IT teams who can help with gathering that data, with filling in the gaps, bringing in roadmaps new functions and new features that will allow you to collect the data that you're missing or to make that data available for data engineers to consume. So, as you can see, it's not only one or the other, and it should be a priority for any organization. So, um, that's how we envision. the involved parties.
Thank you, Alex. That's it's a team effort, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, it's a team effort, and a lot of people are involved. You need to identify your champions within the company, which will enable this, right? That's also something to add, even if they're not the scientists, the engineers, or the actual team managers. They are your enablers. They are the ones pushing the organization to have this data strategy and to work with it, right? So identify your champions early on. I guess it's one thing that will pay its dividends in the long run.
yeah,
And moving ahead, let's see the impact of all of this. So if um, if if you'd like me to share, or I would like me to share with you a well implemented data strategy, um, is basically transforming fundamentally an organization's operations and your decision making capabilities. So the power of informed decisions um, is like imagining a data specialist as a skilled surgeon, right? You wouldn't want your surgeons spending most of their time sterilizing instruments. You want them performing the actual surgery, right? So similarly, your data specialists uh, should spend their time extracting insights and driving decision making, not cleaning and fixing data. This is where a robust data strategy makes all the difference. Then it's business alignment. Your data strategy isn't just a technical document, it's a business enabler. Every aspect should align with your business objectives. So that's why I was mentioning earlier, identify your champions, see what the organization needs and wants. Um, when a let's take an as example where a marketing team needs customer insights, or when a finance team requires forecasting, or when operations need to optimize costs and resources, the data should be readily available, it should be reliable, and it should be actionable, right? So think about it this way: if your business is a car, then data is like the fuel, but not just any fuel. It needs to be the right type of fuel. It needs to be clean. It needs to be available, right? So a proper data strategy ensures you're not just collecting data, but collecting the right data in the right way. And I want to stress here the garbage in, garbage out principle, which very much applies here. Um, and it is a reality that we must address. The quality of your outputs will only be as good as your inputs, right? This principle, known as garbage in, garbage out, is fundamental to understanding why data strategy matters. So if I were to give you a practical example, when you're trying to predict customer churn, let's say, your models might be sophisticated, it might be using state-of-the-art technology, your analysts might be brilliant, but if your customer interaction data is incomplete, inconsistent, or incorrect, then your predictions will be, of course, unreliable. It's like trying to navigate using an outdated map. You might be moving efficiently, but in the wrong direction, right? And in the end, the golden rule of data strategy um, um, is to design your systems and processes so that data specialists spend time analyzing data, not fixing it. This isn't just about efficiency, it's about maximizing the value of your most expensive resources. And thinking of some statistics that I have read a while ago, data scientists actually typically spend 60-70% of their time cleaning data and organizing it instead of doing what they're good at. Only 30% of the time is or 40% is actually spent on the actual analysis and evolving of models. So this represents millions in lost opportunity, right? And the proper data strategy it flips this ratio, allowing your specialists to focus on what they do best, right? Generating insights for you.
That's so true. And on garbage in, garbage out, technology nowadays is so um, full of features that make data quality automation like in a snap of a finger. You don't have to
Mhm.
spend months to implement these kinds of processes. It's much easier nowadays.
Exactly.
So,
We have the tools these days to work on this.
exactly. Um, let's talk a little bit about what objectives a data strategy
Mhm.
should have.
And these are the
Um,
tools, basically. Yeah.
these are the tools. Um, in our vision, two of the objectives that any data strategy should have are data solution architecture and data pipelines. Talking a bit about solution architecture, you need to choose which is the best architecture that you should use right now. Do you use Lambda? Do you go for Kappa architecture? What is it that would benefit you the most and allows you to go live as soon as possible? It's done is better than perfect. You can change in time, you can improve your architecture, and you can shift. But starting with what brings benefits from the beginning is um, more valuable. Then you need to understand whether you want to centralize versus decentralize. You need to understand the pros and cons. Is it a bigger cost of storage impacting you? Then, okay, decentralization could be the way. Cost is not a problem for storage. Go for centralized. How do you get the data there? How your applications start thinking of your lake houses and data lakes as a center of truth for the data, as um, a final objective where the data that they generate should go to. Then it's about technology providers, understanding what's available on the market. Do you go like off the shelf? Do you go open source? You mix them. Do you go with an agnostic or vendor specific solution? Uh, these are all key elements that the data solution architecture should cover as an objective. Then is the data pipeline, which is arguably the core of a data strategy, and it should be fully covered in any strategy. Like the first thing, why? This tells you how you manage your data, basically. Starting from data collection, you should have clear practices, clear understanding how the data is reachable, make it streamline, use automations, use metadata driven frameworks to streamline the data collection. You don't want to spend time on collecting data. You want to have a new source of data embedded in your data platform as soon as possible. Ideally, go for minutes and hours. Days may be more feasible or um, um, more closer to reality, but don't spend time there. Then you have the data storage. You should choose the best formats, the best solutions for storing your data. Whether you use traditional relational databases, will you use a data lake, will you use cloud, will you use on-premise? All these should be covered in by the data pipeline objective. Then you have the data curation, who which is the process of, let's say, giving your data the right form and the right, let's say, setup to be used. You have data labeling, which gives you the right context for your machine learning and AI initiatives, and without that, any supervised learning initiative is basically doomed
Dead in the water.
from the beginning. Yeah. And then you have model training because we are close to 2025. AI is a thing. AI is here and it's not a new thing. It's been there for many years. It gained a lot of thrust in the past 5, 8 years. Uh, and anyone right now should look into deploying any kind of machine learning and AI initiative. So you need to take in consideration model training into your data pipeline. Then you
Mhm.
have data consumption because that data that you have in your platform will be used in reporting, will be used in other applications, will be used by users. These users will take decisions, they will generate new data. So you need to bring that data back into the system. You need to see how you forecast it versus what your actual values were. You need to retrain to improve your systems and not miss any opportunity for the data. So because we only have 5 minutes until the Q&A, I'll stop here, but I'll try to answer any questions in the Q&A part.
Right. Yeah, another important aspect of your data strategy should be governance and compliance. And before you think this is just about rules and regulations, let me show you why this is actually about creating business value. So imagine running a large kitchen. Um, you need to know where every ingredient comes from, how fresh it is, who's handling it, and how it's being used, right? So data governance works the same way. It's about knowing your data's journey from its source to where it's consumed. A practical example is, let's say, if your marketing team makes a critical business decision based on some customer behavior data, and I don't know, 6 months later, someone asks, how did we reach that conclusion, right? And with proper data governance in place, you can trace back every step. You can actually see where the data came from, how it was transformed, who accessed it, and how it was used, right? Without governance, you're essentially flying blind. And a lot of companies actually face these challenges about data ownership. So, who's responsible for which data, access control, who should see what, about data quality, how do we ensure accuracy, about compliance requirements, how can we stay within regulations, right? Think GDPR. So, how successful organizations are, they need to address these challenges. They create clear data ownership roles. Think of them as data product managers. They implement data catalogs, and they establish quality metrics, like a quality control system for your data, right? So the real business value here comes from, enabling faster decision making because you trust your data, right? And you reduce the risk of breaches and misuse, and you lower the costs in management. And of course, you increase reusability across teams, right? And usage and requirements, I won't stress on this too much, but it's about translating all of this into actionable goals. And the key is setting realistic, measurable objectives that tie into the business outcomes. Okay. Now, let's move to the next slide. Okay. On how to start.
The part for which we are here, right?
Yeah, exactly. What
Um,
what should you do?
yeah, starting is, let's say, the hardest part in as in every new habit, as in every new action. So a first thing that you can start right away is evaluating your current data state. You should answer some simple questions. Which are your data sources? are they digital already? Because we see a lot um, of contexts where data is still on paper or worst on people's minds. So work towards having those informations and those that data digitalized. Um, then which are the business opportunities that can be supported by data and which are the gaps in your data landscape. Once you do that, you should have a clear vision of your current data estate. Then you need to define your objectives. The four that we've mentioned before are the general ones that we've seen and we use ourselves. You should aim, like for any other strategy, to keep it like three or four and fairly generic. These objectives should not change very often. And each of them should be accompanied by 3 to 5 goals or key results. Keep them ambitious, but also doable, and find ways to automate the measurements. Again, spend time where it matters most. Then start building a roadmap. For each objective, you should have a clear coverage within the roadmap how you will be attaining that goals, that goal, and that objective. What will be your focus in the next 6 to 12 months? And um start from there. Then
All right. And the following up on what Alex has just said, it's also about 4, 5, and 6, right? Implement and monitor, adapt and evolve, and take the benefits. We just lost the screen for a second. So we're talking here about turning your strategy into, a plan of action, and this is where the theory meets reality. And if we look at implementation and monitoring, you need to think of this as your strategy's vital signs, right? That you need to constantly check. You want to establish regular reviews, and these are not just meetings for the sake of meetings. They're crucial touch points to ensure that your initiatives are on the right track. We've seen organizations succeed by holding, let's say, monthly or quarterly steering committees and weekly check-ins. Your development teams need consistent support, right? They're the ones turning plans into reality. So make it a priority to provide them with timely inputs and updates. And also, don't forget to, after each completed action, collect feedback, right? This isn't just about what went right or wrong. It's about gathering insights that will correct and fuel your next steps. And this leads us to adapting and evolving. And because your data strategy isn't carved into stone, it's more like clay that needs regular reshaping. Markets change, technologies evolve, and your strategy needs to keep pace. And an important principle to follow here that I want to emphasize is done is better than perfect, right? We've seen way too many organizations get paralyzed by trying to create the best and perfect solution. Instead, try to focus on small incremental steps, complete initiatives that deliver value, even if it's not perfect, right? You can always iterate and improve, but you can't improve what isn't finished, right? And the most exciting part is harvesting the benefits. This is where your data strategy transforms from just the cost, another cost within your organization, into actually generating value. And you'll start to see opportunities to extract more value from your existing systems. Use this as a platform for experimenting, for testing different approaches, try new strategies. Every piece of data then becomes a potential insight. about your customers, about your business. And this is where you can find and build a real competitive advantage. Right? The goal is not to have better data. It's about making better decisions.
Yeah, thank you, Theo. Uh, Jumping to conclusions, because we need to go into the Q&A.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's that saying of cultures eat strategy for breakfast, and I would not believe that until I would see it in action. You can build the most sophisticated, complex, and state-of-the-art data architectures out there. If the business doesn't use the reports, doesn't use the information that you gather from the data, it's just another cost, as you mentioned. So a strategy cannot happen without culture. If you don't have the culture, nurture it. Start nurturing it. Start engaging with people. Try to understand why they don't use the data. What's stopping them from taking those benefits? Also, it will take time. Uh, Having and implementing big data platforms is never a matter of weeks or months. Actually, never stops because as a strategy, a data platform always evolves. You have new data, you have new opportunities, you have new platforms that generate you data, and that makes your systems uh, to have to adapt to those changes. So it will never be finished. And even when it comes to starting, it will not go overnight. So just take um, each win and go one step to the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if I may add, about the cultural aspect of it, right? Commitment from leadership is essential, right? You need
Mhm.
leadership buy-in. You need those champions that I was mentioning earlier, and you need the balance between governance and accessibility. Focus on the people and the processes, not just the technology. So next steps would be, right, build an assessment where you are and where you want to go. Set realistic, achievable goals for where you want to go, and create a roadmap that's flexible. That's that clay that I was mentioning about, right? Not set in stone, because it needs to evolve, and create that strong data governance that I mentioned earlier about, right? That's crucial. So the core message of what we're trying to say here is that the data strategy is a journey, not a destination. It evolves within your company, with your company, with technology and your diverse business needs. So the key is to start with clear intent, maintain consistency in your execution, but stay flexible enough to adapt as needed. All right.
Thank you so much, Theo. Let's
Yeah.
go into Q&A. Uh, okay. Um, let's see in the chat if we have any questions. Not there. Okay. We have some questions in the Q&A. So, first question, would you like to take this one, Theo? Could you elaborate on how data steering influences the overall data strategy?
Data steering.
Yeah, I
All
think
right.
it's the data steering
Mm-hmm.
committee. I think
Yeah.
it's from the beginning of our presentation.
That we mentioned. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, the steering is essentially your GPS system that we mentioned earlier. It involves having a dedicated committee or stakeholders, or the champions that I mentioned from different departments. It needs regular reviews, remember the quarterly or monthly that I mentioned before, and it's about adjusting your data initiatives, right? So align your data projects with the business objectives. Don't work in isolated from the business. And the decision-making authority um, needs to be on board for the data-related investments, right? So think of it,
Mhm.
think data steering as the bridge between the strategic planning that you're doing and the tactical execution. It ensures that your initiatives stay on course while remaining flexible.
Sounds good. What I may add, the data steering
Please,
committee is they are both the biggest supporters and the biggest critics of the data strategy. And they are the ones who, it's the group of people that does know exactly how they should adapt, how they should change, how they should shift, all through cross-functional communication. They would not be able to take those decisions um, without the feedback from the business, basically, and all the other departments. And their influence is, I think, the highest within the whole concept. Hope we answered this question. Moving on to the next one. How do you ensure that new data strategies integrate smoothly with existing IT infrastructures and systems? Um, well, um, that's a part of the strategies itself. Um, you need to find the right technology providers. You need to find the right architectures, solutions, and approaches to reduce the friction. There will always be friction. You have different uh, views because we all start with legacy systems. We are not so lucky to start from a blank page every single year, every single time a new technology appears. So, um, what you can do is see what's the best solution and the best technology that you can deploy ideally as soon as possible. um, it's compliant with your security policies, it's compliant with your industry policies and regulations, and can give you um, value ideally as soon as possible. Next day if possible, but hey, that's the dream.
that's a good question. Uh, Any other?
Uh, yeah, before we go to the next one, please do not forget to uh, fill in the feedback form. It was posted in the chat and it helps us a lot to bring the best content in our future sessions. Um, the next question is, how do you balance data governance with the need for innovation and agility in an organization?
Can you take this one, please, Alex?
Yeah, sure. Um, well, data governance is not meant to hinder the agility and the innovation in any way. On the contrary, it should uh, support your organization. It should take from the organization the time spent on making sure, hey, is this data compliant? Is this data securely accessible? Do we have the right roles assigned to everyone in place? These things, if they are put in the data governance and properly implemented, these most of the times will be automated and they will um, help you not spend time on thinking about them because they are already there. Um, so data governance is not about hindering agility and innovation, and it's not bureaucracy. Data governance just helps you have a clear view of your data ecosystem at any single point in time.
Mhm.
Don't create a ticket and ask two engineers to review, hey, who has access to that? You should already see it. You should already know what data you have. You should be able to discover data much faster and um,
Mhm. Yeah.
trust that is secured.
And if I may add one other thing,
Yeah, please.
also important is to implement maybe a tiered governance model. So tier one might be critical data, which has strict controls. Tier
Yeah,
two might be business important data, which might have, let's say, more moderate controls. And tier three, experimental data, which has more flexible controls. So this allows you to have different levels of freedom based on the sensitivity of data. Also, uh, also useful is to create clear fast tracks. So instead of making everyone go through the same lengthy approval process, establish pre-approved tools and data sets for experimenting. Let's say the tier three data that I mentioned earlier. Streamline the approval process for low-risk projects. So adopt the trust but verify approach, where you implement an automated compliance monitoring. Maybe you can use AI-powered governance tools, set up automated data quality checks, create audit trails that don't slow down the processes. So the key is shifting from preventive to detective controls.
thank you so much, Theo, for that addition. The next question is, how do you prioritize which stages in the data pipeline need optimization when resources are limited? Um,
Yeah, that's a good one. You want to take
yeah,
this one, or you want me to take it?
I'll give my 5 cents. It
Please.
depends on which resources are limited, but let's say both people and costs are two limiting factors. How I see things, you cannot do analytics if you don't have data. So data collection is definitely um, a process that should be prioritized, not in terms of spending the most time there, but being as efficient as possible. To not spend the time there. Once you once you've done that, then you can move to the other stages. Next to data collection is data governance. Um, you should have, or with the right governance, you don't have to spend time there. So you do sort of a one-time investment, and then you can spend that effort and resources on the other stages. Um, so that would be my take. And maybe another important factor in model training stage, you, as Theo mentioned earlier, you can have the most sophisticated models. If your data is not properly curated and labeled, your results will be skewed. So the value and the benefits of that action will be definitely impacted. So spend time in having clean data and um, not so much time in trying to squeeze the last 1% in model accuracy, for example, which can come to huge costs if not properly monitored. Theo,
Yep.
you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, you can do like a quick assessment, right? You create a matrix, simple matrix, and you can score each pipeline stage on its impact, its urgency, and the effort required. Scale it on a scale of 1 to 5, and then calculate an ROI. Um, then let's say you have three pipeline issues, right? You have slow data ingestion, you calculate the score. You have manual data cleansing, you calculate the score. You have reporting delays. So with all these, while all the issues matter, the reporting delays might be your first target because they offer the highest return for the lowest effort. So yeah, key principles: focus on the quick wins first, address the critical bottlenecks, and also, but always consider the downstream effects. Yeah, plan for scalability. I guess it's also worth to add.
Thank you. Thank you, Theo. We have two more questions left, so let's try to wrap this also. Um, one of the question is, what are some practical approaches to minimize bias during the data analytics
Hmm,
phase, particularly in machine learning applications?
that's an excellent question. Yeah. And
What do
it
you think,
touches
Theo?
on, yeah, it's a problem of our day and age, right? And it touches on a critical aspect of modern data analytics. So some practical approaches might fall into different actionable areas. You might think of the part where you're collecting data and preparing it, and you might want to implement um, some representative sampling techniques. You want to ensure a wide and diverse data set. Um, you want to document the data collection methods that you're using and their potential limitations. You know, you wanna have a balanced data set, right, across key variables, and you want to test for missing or unrepresented segments. So for example, if you're using or analyzing customer behavior, because we mentioned it earlier, ensure your data set includes various demographics and like time zones and usage patterns, not just your most active users, right? And also worth considering is the feature selection and engineering, right? Use statistical tests to identify potential bias in features, document features selection criteria, um, maybe implement regular feature importance analysis, cross-validate the significance of features, and test the correlation and how these features depend on one another, right? I'm thinking of a financial company that is building a credit scoring modeling because that's common, right? So regularly check um, if the variables um, introduce demographic bias. So yeah, there are a lot of things that can be done to overcome these limitations. I think we
Uh,
will have to have an entire session on that.
you can spend a lot of time talking about bias, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it's an ongoing process, right? It's not a one-time fix. It requires
and
regular review, cross-functional collaboration, clear documentation, and
Mhm.
continuous learning, right?
Yeah, and it goes hand in hand with explainability of the machine learning models, which is an ongoing um, journey for us and the biggest AI and machine learning scientists out there. So everyone is trying to make things more explainable so you can
Exactly.
quickly find those patterns.
So you can
Thank you so
see,
much,
so you
Theo.
can identify the bias, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because it comes down to patterns. We have one last question. But before that, please, another reminder to take the time to fill in the feedback form. It's in the chat. So thank you for that. Uh, the last question is, how do you define and measure the success of a data strategy in an organization? Well, it's like any other strategy. You measure your goals and how much you have achieved of them. That's the easy answer. That's why a good data strategy should have clear objectives and clear goals with uh, um, measurable key results. So you know whether you are down, whether you are on the right track. Parts or some examples of such metrics is how much time you spend on generating reporting for department meetings, how much of the data-driven decisions are already covered by out-of-the-box reports, how much of your forecasted values are obtained using machine learning deployments. These are some samples. The whole idea of the data strategy is it should be used. It's not, its outputs should be used. It's not about having most data out there. It's about getting the value out of it. Uh, that's my take on it. But Theo, if you'd like to add,
No, that sums it up nicely.
great. That being said, that's all. Before we close, stay tuned and make sure you register on the website. We will announce a new webinar in December, and we'll talk more about AI innovation funnel. So
That will be an interesting one, yeah. And it's something that um, we've actually worked with in the past with some of our customers. So we've helped to find the diamond in buried in the sand, and we've helped them, refine it, and we've helped them identify their needs, because that's what this is about: trying to innovate within your company, but try to find the use cases that have the best chance for success, and they have the best return on investment.
great. Stay tuned on LinkedIn for that one, and wish you all a great day, evening, afternoon ahead, and have an easy week. Take care. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.